and few of the IT organizations. And majorly, I work with EdTech, healthcare, FMCG. These are the, you can say the client that I have worked. And my work entirely was more into the solutioning designing, Gen AI solution, designing entire end to end. And uh, I did my MBA from IIT Delhi, and after that, I took up, this AI ML part. So this is my quick intro. So let me just set the context of today's session. So this session is more about this AWS Bedrock. So it falls under this GenAI. So let me quickly share my screen so that you'll understand that what I'm trying to say. Okay. And why you should learn this AWS and AWS Bedrock. So there are a few services. Okay. So before I explain these AWS services or anything in AWS, hope my screen is visible, and let me quickly walk you through some of the basic stuff that we typically see in this AI domain. So there is something called AI. So what AI means, it's again artificial and intelligence, but something like a human, we do have the some sort of intelligence. Okay, and intelligence varies with the kind of upbringings, maybe the kind of society we live in, the kind of environment we live in. So it depends on, it varies with, different humans. But again, that is called a new, this natural intelligence. Okay. Humans have a natural intelligence. Okay. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, so something which are artificial, okay, which are not real, which are not like a human, right? So, but again, mimicking the human behavior, human tendencies, human pattern is, we can call it as artificial intelligence, okay? But there are also a term called, this machine learning, a part subset of AI, and the machine learning. When you say learning, right? So machine is gonna learn. So what machines means? Again, the computing, whatever we have, we give it to the fast calculating devices. Here we typically, interact with the GPUs, CPUs, right? So the machine, how you are training the machine so that they can give some prediction. So you might have heard of some of the basic algorithms called, regressions, classifications, clustering, learning, and some of them are called unsupervised learning, right? So supervised means you have input and output. Okay, for example, if you want to predict, whether today's, there will be a rainfall or not, so that will fall under your regression case. So you are predicting one continuous value from, a lot of data you have, right? So there is something called clustering. So when you say clustering means a kind of unsupervised data. You have a lot of data. Let's say in a bucket, you have a lot of data. You don't know what to do with this data, right? So that is something, their labels are not known to you. Even you don't know the classification of those data that is with you, right? So something which doesn't hold any labels, which are just kind of a data thrown at you, have no any structure, pattern, anything, that you can call it an unstructured one. So typically in our industry, whenever you have a data in PDF, in Word file, we call it unstructured data, right? Because there is a no structure defined. Although there is something written in maybe in the English, they are in a structure, but their format, they are not in a structure, right? So that is why it's called unstructured data. And a lot of data bricks, whenever we interact with the data bricks, are kind of a services of AWS, will deal with these unstructured data. That is why I'm just bringing in this point, that how valuable this unstructured data is. Okay. So, I mean, for example, right now in the social media, I typically put one tweet on X. Maybe on Instagram, we are interacting with the friends, putting some comments. So, I mean, we are creating a lot of unstructured data, right? So how you're going to use that. I mean, the usage of those unstructured data is more important. And when it comes to, this Amazon Bedrock, because we are into this GenAI and Agentic. So again, there is a one more term called DL, that is called a deep learning, right? So you might have known some of the, you can say, algorithms called a neural network. So neural network is nothing but it's built on top of, you can say the neurons. So they do have some kind of a hidden layer, right? So they give you predictions, but they hide something, right? Kind of, there are different hidden layers, and then they decide the outcome. So you can do the regression stuff using this traditional or classical machine learning, and also you can do through the deep learning. So the difference is that you'll see their, the outcome, their predictions accuracy, because deep learning algorithms are able to dig down extra layer and give you a kind of better accuracy, right? Then comes, a term called GenAI. So GenAI is again part of AI, but something which you are generating is called generative AI. So the concept of, the Gen AI came in the market because we every single time you are not gonna train, the data whatever you have. So training anything, for example, it takes a lot of your input, a lot of human power, a lot of CPUs, a lot of GPUs, kind of a computing. You don't need every single time. So, the people, for example, OpenAI, they came up with, this transformer. You can GPT, but the Google has already developed these transformer models. So this OpenAI, they came up with this, this GPT model, GPT 4.0, 5.1 or something, right? A chat GPT, we typically use it, right? So it falls under this Gen AI, I mean, kind of something which you are generating. That is called an inferencing task. So let's say I have some document and I just want to summarize it. So it will be one of the inferencing tasks, summarizing the document. So every single time you're not going to train the model, we just pass our input to chat GPT and it's going to summarize us, right? You also see that how it happens typically. Okay, then comes, this agentic AI, or sometimes also called AI. So agentic AI is kind of something which you are automating your task, but there is a AI driven. So you might have seen some of the tools which are available in the market. Automation tool, we call it a automation industry. It's again a different sort of industry, right? So in Azure you have a Power Automate, right? And also there are a few UI path automation. So there are different automation tools, but how come we can leverage this AI so that it can automate our tasks? For example, I want to go from, let's say, Chennai to Bangalore, and I just want to, book my flight. Is there any possibility that I just give, agentic AI, AI tool, my, entire, you can say the details, credit cards and everything, and it books ticket for me, right? So it's a possible through the agentic AI tools. Okay. But when it comes to this, now come to this Bedrock part. So there are also some of the cloud. So now comes to the cloud, right? So there are different cloud available in the market. Okay, so when we say cloud, so we do have something called AWS. We have something called Azure. We have something called GCP, right? But these all are, you can say, the market player. I wouldn't say that the only one go with this Azure or AWS. AWS has a huge market, huge potentials because of the kind of, you can say, the security they have. But again, Azure is also competing with each other. But when you see the US client or European client, they mostly rely on AWS because of end-to-end encryptions, the end-to-end, you can say, the security layer on top of that. And their kind of, you can say, services, they are more, more robust services. Okay. GCP is also the, in the market, but their percentage of the people, you can say, the market capture, very, it's a, you can significantly low, right? So now coming to this, uh, you know, uh, cloud, that why we want to learn this AWS, right? So in the AWS, we have also a term called Bedrock. So what is Bedrock, right? So I mean, how this Bedrock gonna solve us, the problem, right? So there is something called, RAG, right? The term that I'm just trying to write. I'm just creating some, a kind of, a baseline for you so that you understand. There is something called, the RAG. RAG is nothing but it's a retrieval augmented generation. So okay, let me write it. So it's called retrieval. Okay. Retrieval, augmented, and then there is something called generation. Okay. So whatever you generate, that will be augmented. Okay. So, and we are going to retrieve it. Okay. So there are a few terms which you must know, right? So there is something. Okay, and we'll see using this Bedrock. I'll show you this lab that how you're gonna use it this Bedrock. Okay, so there is something called knowledge base. Okay, so it's again a term that is frequently used. Okay, so what is a knowledge base? So what? Let's say you have some of your own. Let's say you work for, let's say, EY in organizations, and they have their a lot of data available for them. Okay, and let's say if they want to create some kind of a chatbot, right? So how they're gonna create it? So obviously they will have a lot of unstructured data, so they will create some knowledge base. Okay, knowledge base means ingesting a lot of unstructured data and then creating embedding on top of that. And then once the embedding is created, they're gonna do some kind of indexing and they will store it somewhere. So that is called a vector data. Okay. So let me just write some few of the terms that I have used. Something called embedding. Okay. So what is embedding? Embedding means, for example, whatever I am speaking right now, computer is not going to understand a single thing. So how computer is going to understand? They will convert every single sentence of mine into some numbers. So that number is called, this embedding. That is called a vector format, right? So converting text into some vectors is called embedding. So you generate some numbers. Okay, that is called embedding. Okay. So text to numbers. Okay. So giving some numbers so that it can capture the context. Okay. That is called embedding. And then there is something called vector storage. Okay. So embedding requires some kind of a storage. Okay. So we need some vector storage. For example, SQL database. There are different database. They store those structured data. So that is typically we have a traditional, databases. But when you have embedding cannot be stored in the traditional databases. So for that, we require some vector storage. And Azure has this inbuilt vector storage, and also you can store it these vectors also in S3 bucket. Okay. So, I mean, how are we gonna create something where we can leverage this, this Amazon, you can say the Bedrock, right? So again, for this Bedrock, right? I mean, there are industries shifting from, traditional machine learning from this traditional, this era to Gen AI and agentic AI. Okay. If you work in any industry, let's say in AI and ML, let's say, or maybe in the consulting industry, you'll see if you are in AI, right? So you'll see a lot of use cases are related to Gen AI and agentic AI. Okay. And also, the client typically ask you, whether you have used any of these RAG services or not, and how typically you build any chatbot. They're gonna ask you end to end, right? So these are the terms: RAG, knowledge base, embedding, vector storage. The retrieval. What is it called? The retrieval. These are the something that they're gonna ask you, that how much comfortable you are with these terms, because ultimately, directly or indirectly, in industry, they are working on some kind of a chatbot where, this input of these systems required, this structured and unstructured data, right? So through those data, because they have a the huge piles of a data, the huge repository of unstructured data, but they want to mine it. That is called something called data mining. Okay, so how they gonna mine this data, right? So that they can bring some valuable insights, and then they can drive the business, right? For example, there are organizations called, let's say, Nestle, right? They want to create some applications where they want to generate some new recipe, right? So every single day, somehow we are using some Nestle product in some or other forms, right? But they want to, create, this leverage this GenAI or agentic AI to come up with a new recipe, a new, you can say, the food that is healthy for them, right? So these are the industry. For example, there are also in the healthcare industry they are using this Gen AI and agentic AI. Even in India, we have now even our government started using this Gen AI and agentic AI, how to sort these public issues, right? For example, to automate things which are frequently repetitive in task, right? So they are using and employing these agentic AI tools. Okay. So now coming to this, let me just switch to this AWS cloud. Okay. So just confirm me if my AWS screen is visible. Can you see if AWS this UI is visible? Can anybody confirm?
Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So great. So let's hit this AWS, this icon. So I assume you have used, but again, for the people who haven't used it, so okay, just click this AWS. Okay. So I mean, again, you need free the credentials to practice it so that you can use it, and you can work in this AWS. Okay, so it's a very interesting one. If you see start using it, or you might have used it, you can relate to, and you'll see the few services in the left side. You just see it. So let me just put this color. Okay. Okay. So we cross it. Okay. So there is something called S3, Athena services that I have used, this recently. So that is why it is on the screen. So don't worry. Amazon Bedrock Agent Core. There is something called Redshift. The user notifications, billing, cost management, EC2 container is there. There are a lot of stuff. Okay. On the right side, if you see, again, in the left side, there is something called Amazon Q. If you have some questions, anything, it's like a co-pilot. It's integrated, right? If you want to ask something related to any of the AWS services, you can type in and you can interact with. So it also gives you a facility of inbuilt chatbot that can interact with different AWS services. Okay, and you can ask it because we all are not well versed in this using of AWS, because sometimes you get confused with their interface and all that. But if you use it frequently, you'll get to know that it's again it's very easy and very quite impressive, and very useful in the enterprise. If you know it, there is a higher chances of getting a new offers, new jobs. If you put it in your resume that you are Bedrock this certified, so people have higher chances of being picked up by organizations. Okay, so again let me hit this AWS. On the top of the screen, if you see, there are something called Cloud Cell. It's again like CMD. We all have, worked directly or indirectly with commands like command prompt or PowerShell. So it's like a Cloud Cell. Okay. If you are very good in this terminal, writing a piece of code in a terminal, it's better for you also. For example, solution, the people who are AWS solution architect, typically they use this Cloud Cell to provision some of the services. Let's say an organization, let's say Nestle wants to create a chatbot built on top of Bedrock, and they want some services. So again, solution architect is gonna design entire solutions from data ingestions to pre-processing to knowledge base layer to inference layer. So again, to cover this entire services, to chatbot deployed, so they're gonna pick up these services, AWS services. Okay. For example, Athena. Athena is like a SQL, database where if you have some data in a structured format, you can query it, right? So I mean, if you know it, so this power cell gonna help. Okay. There is something called, you have this notifications. So if you provisioning any resource or services, you'll see these things coming on top. There are some questions. If you want some support from this AWS, then we have some settings. And I have selected this United States, North Virginia. And this is my, you can say the dev user. And this is my credentials and this ID. Okay. So typically your UI looks like this. Okay. So I'm just making you aware that how you get familiarity with this AWS user screen, because this dashboard, if you feel like there is some issue, so I mean, that is why I just want you to become more familiar with this dashboard, because you will be using these services very frequently and you'll get confused that which screen I am, so, that is why. So there are a lot of things in this screen, but below you don't need to worry about, okay? Because the second half, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of jargons, a lot of things on this screen, okay? So now, so here you will just write Bedrock. Let's see if it comes or not. So once you search, okay, my internet connection is stable. Okay. So Bedrock, once you search in the search bar, you'll see that there is something called Amazon Bedrock. So once you just see it, there is something called the easiest way to build and scale generative AI applications. Okay. So what could be the possible generative AI applications? And let's say, it is not like something you cannot build in any other domain. For example, if you work with, let's say, financial domain, you can also create some Gen AI applications, maybe the agricultural domain, maybe the healthcare. So, I mean, just name the domain and you can create Gen AI solutions. So it is for each and every domain that you work, you can create Gen AI applications, okay? Through this foundation model. So let me hit this Amazon Bedrock icon. Okay, so once I hit this Bedrock icon, you'll see a lot of, this commentary and a lot screen, you'll have a left side, you'll have some, overview, quick start is there, model catalog is there. That's something called API keys, okay, in the left side, okay? So there is something called labs. It shows you the quota, how much quota is there for this applications or maybe the models. There is something called compare model. So let's say if I hit this compare model, so you can compare, let's say, Claude Opus 4.6 with this Sonnet 4.6, and you can see it. Okay, for example, if you see the kind of comparison, let's say, you can use it for both modality. Modalities means kind of input, whether you want to give it like like image, text or something. Okay, so I mean, these are the way you can compare. For example, if you work with GenAI applications and ask is to use better image generations in the model. So you cannot go with this the basic model of Anthropic, this Claude, right? So we need some sophisticated high end this model, right? For example, the maximum token stake is 1 million. So if you compare both Sonnet and Opus, I mean, by and large, they have a similar features, right? So also you can dig down and you'll see a lot of the models out there, right? So you can compare it. So there is something called playground and watermark detection. Tokenizer is there. Okay. So once you click this this Amazon Bedrock there, the playground, let's select it. Okay. So you'll see in the left side there are a different models. For example, AI 21 Labs. So these are also one of the organizations. They provide these models. Okay, Jamba 1.5, the large. So input they take is text and also the output text. For example, you cannot use it for the image. The input as an image and output as also image can't be used, right? So there is also model of inbuilt model of Amazon. So Nova Pro, you can use it for text, image, and video generations, and also Anthropic, I mean the text and image, and Cohere is there. So Cohere is also an organization and for this, providing this foundational, these LLM models. We have a DeepSeek, the Chinese model. So it took the industry by storm because of, the kind of their, the output, their responses were much better than ChatGPT. The Google do have their own models. Somehow, directly, indirectly, we have used Gemma models. Also, the Llama model of Meta, the Facebook, right? There is a Minimax. I've seen for the first time. I haven't used it, but again, they also provide this kind of LLMs. Minstrel AI, again, they are much better in the audio, speech. If you have some task, let's say you want to automate some of the speech conversations, some of the Gen AI applications where speech is the critical one. For example, in any of the call center industry, and you just want to highlight some of the issues whenever there is some conversation going on and you felt there is some need of some support, in the real time. So that could be the possible way you can use this Mistral model, right? So Moonshot AI, there is also text and image. If you have some use cases, NVIDIA is again a bigger platform and, uh, just look for these models as well as they also provide some of the Gen AI end-to-end applications like AWS or Azure, NVIDIA, right? So they are like graphics, the rich graphics if you work with. So they are much better. OpenAI is there, Quine is there. So a lot of models are there, right? So inference is there. So how you want batch inferencing, you want or throughput kind of, there is a tuning of the model. So now there is a more interesting thing. There is something called agent. So how are you going to build the agents, right? Agent is like something where, let's say there is a one use case, right? For example, there are some structured data. Now also you have to deal with unstructured data, right? So that is the way that you can do, right? So for example, just I'm giving you, and the hint that how you can develop this. Okay, so quickly, let me just go with this one. So how we can build it. Okay. So there is something called, let me just replicate this screen. Okay. So quickly. So here you can duplicate this screen. Okay. So let's see, we have this S3. Okay. So there is something called S3. Okay. So once you go in S3, okay, S3 bucket. So we have this already, I have uploaded it. Okay. Amazon S3 data. Okay, so you can easily upload something called chemistry.pdf. You can upload it from here. So I have uploaded just to show you that how you can do that. Okay, as we have limited time. Okay, so this is S3. Okay, this is the data. Then you go to here. Okay, in this Amazon Bedrock. Okay, and go into this playground. Okay, and then select the model. Okay, once you select it, let's say I'm just selecting, Anthropic. Or maybe this one, you can select this one, legacy one. Let's input and let's also take input and apply it. Okay. So once you take this, okay, so this will give you something called inferencing. Okay. And just write hi, whether it works or not. Okay. So once I have written hi, we'll see that it is saying access denied because this is model is provided by the legacy and you do not have actively using. Okay. So again, I have to go with this playground. Okay. And I have to change the model. Okay. I have to change the model somehow. Okay. So that is the one, the problem with this that you have to provision it. Okay. So now let me go here. So something which I have done. Okay. So it will give you an end-to-end view. Okay. For example. So here, if you see this one, okay, Amazon Bedrock in the left side, okay, there is agent knowledge basis. If I click knowledge base, okay, you'll see there is something called knowledge base here. It is created from that S3 document. Okay. So also you can test the knowledge base. And this knowledge base has this ID and it is connected through this S3. If you see this one, okay. and it was synced. Okay. So you have to create this knowledge base through this S3 only. Okay. So now let me go as the knowledge base is created. Okay. Let me hit this. There is something called playground. Okay. Whether it works or not. Select the model. Let's say select this model only. And this is inference. This is output. Okay. And then apply. Okay. And then just write it. Let's say if it works or not. Okay. So once you hit this one, so they're gonna assist you that what you can do it. So describe the artificial intelligence. Okay. So it will describe the artificial intelligence. Okay. So I mean, this will have, okay, too many requests, wait before trying. So need to wait for some time. Okay. And it will give the response and it has already given. So there is some, lag here. If you see this one, there is some lag. It is saying, right, response is coming, but we have to wait. Okay. So, I mean, this way, we can leverage this one, this Bedrock. Okay. So it doesn't need much